Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flying Officer Gregory Young. We are honoured to welcome Vice Admiral Michael Noonan, Chief of Navy, who is joining us this evening. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Please be seated if you can do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read just one story behind the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Robin James Gilchrist. Robin Gilchrist was born on the 12th of August 1902 in Maryborough, Queensland, the son of James and Eliza Gilchrist. His father was a timber carrier and farmer who later settled on the Pineview farm near Gundia. Eliza Gilchrist died in 1903 after giving birth to a daughter, and it was 6 years before James Gilchrist remarried. The family eventually grew to include 7 sons and 5 daughters. Robin Gilchrist attended a provisional school in Deborah and later the Gundia School, to which he rode each day on horseback. He was a skilled horseman and rode in local sports events. After leaving school, he worked with his father as a station hand and labourer. He did get into trouble with the law at one stage and was arrested for stealing a horse. He served 6 months. Gilchrist was working as a drover when he volunteered for the 2nd Australian Imperial Force. Enlisting on the 27th of July of 1940, he suffered a few bouts of illness before being taken on strength of No. 3 Infantry Training Battalion. His home service was punctuated with a few more trips to hospital, once with mumps, before embarking with the 2nd of 26th Battalion aboard a Dutch transport ship, arriving in Singapore on the 15th of August 1941. Following Japan's entry into the war in December, the 2nd of 26th was part of the 8th Division's defence of the Malayan Peninsula. On the 15th of February 1942, after weeks of fierce fighting, Singapore fell to the Japanese, and Gilchrist became one of 45,000 Australian and British troops captured in the surrender. The Japanese began to draft the prisoners into forced labour units. In May 1942, a force left Changi for Burma, where the men formed a large part of a workforce of slave labourers constructing the Burma-Thailand Railway. Conditions were horrific. Many of the prisoners were malnourished and disease was rife. In all, 479 Australian soldiers died on the Burma section of the railway. It is likely that Private Gilchrist was part of A Force and worked on the railway. On the 1st of August 1943, he died of blackwater fever, a complication from malaria. He was just shy of his 42nd birthday. Back in Australia, there was little news communicated about prisoners of war, and Gilchrist's family did not learn of his death until September 1945. Gilchrist's remains were later reinterred into Tan Bayot Zayat War Cemetery in Myanmar under the inscription, "Loved by parents, brothers and sisters." He is also commemorated on his mother's headstone in Tyro Cemetery. Private Robin James Gilchrist's name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my left among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Robert James Gilchrist, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and for the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and we wish you all a very good evening.